what if the absolute greatest lie we have ever been sold is the idea that a truly happy life simply has to be a painless one?
Oh, wow. Starting right out of the gate with the heavy questions this morning.
I know, but just think about the implications of that for a second. We spend billions of dollars, right? We engineer entirely new medical technologies, digital technologies. We structure basically our entire modern society around this one desperate, fundamental goal.
The complete eradication of suffering.
Exactly, the total eradication of it. We treat pain not as a normal part of the human condition, but as like a glitch in the software of existence.
Right, like an error code that just needs to be permanently deleted.
Yes. But what if, in our frantic attempt to build a world with absolutely no sorrow, we're accidentally, walling ourselves off from the only mechanism that actually produces invincible, lasting joy?
I mean, that is a profound and honestly almost dangerous question to ask, especially this early in the morning.
It really is.
Because if you operate under the assumption that pain is always a failure, right, then any encounter with hardship just becomes a source of complete despair.
You're just totally unequipped for it.
Exactly. You are left entirely unequipped for the reality of actually living.
And reality is exactly what we are looking at this morning. So if you are sitting with us right now, maybe holding a warm cup of coffee, letting the steam kind of rise up in the dim light, I really want to paint the picture of where we are broadcasting from today.
It is a beautiful morning.
It really is. We are sitting in the studio of Chesterton Radio in Atchison, Kansas. It is Friday, May 15th, 2026, and you are listening to our morning Daybreak broadcast. And right now, before the sun fully breaks over the horizon, there's this suspended, really heavy quality to the air.
Yeah, heavy is the perfect word for it.
Looking at our studio windows over the Missouri River Valley, the entire landscape is just shrouded in this thick, luminous silver mist. I mean, you can't even see the water. It's entirely obscured.
It's just a wall of fog.
Right. And just a few moments ago, cutting right through the quiet of that valley, we heard the echoing chime of the church bells ringing out from St. Benedict's Abbey.
There is just such an incredible gravity to that sound, ringing through the fog like that. It really anchors you in time and space.
It does.
And the air slipping through the studio window this morning, it carries that really distinct earthy scent, that damp soil and new spring leaves.
Oh, I love that smell.
It just feels like a morning of anticipation.
It is absolutely a morning of anticipation. Because the campus of Benedictine College, which is literally right just outside our doors, is waking up to the emotional culmination of the entire academic year.
It's a huge day.
It is a day just packed with monumental, life-altering transitions. I mean, within a few hours, the seniors are going to be gathering for their 10 a.m. senior brunch in the dining hall.
You can almost feel the nervous energy already.
Right. Just imagine the sheer nervous energy in that room. The distribution of the honor cords, the discovery medals, and just that sudden, heavy realization that their 4 years are abruptly concluding.
It hits you all at once.
It really does. And then, at 1 p.m., there's the traditional nursing pinning ceremony over in the auditorium.
Which, for those who might not be super familiar with the history of that, it is a tradition with immense historical weight.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it traces its roots all the way back to Florence Nightingale and the 1860s in London. So it's not just, a graduation. It is a literal blessing of the hands.
A blessing of the hands. It's beautiful.
It's a commissioning. These young men and women are actively choosing to step into the suffering of others in hospitals and clinics.
Exactly. They are dedicating their entire lives to being present in rooms where people are in immense pain.
Right.
And then tonight, wrapping up this whole collision of endings and beginnings, is the incredibly poignant March of Light.
Such a powerful visual.
It is. The graduates are going to carry lit candles up the Raven Walk in the dark, gathering at the grotto before the baccalaureate mass.
Yeah.
So we are situated in a day fundamentally defined by transition, right?
Yeah.
By this bittersweet mingling of profound grief over leaving and immense gladness for the future. And that specific atmosphere, that feeling that is the mission of our deep dive this morning.
It's the perfect day to talk about this.
It really is. We are going to explore this mysterious, seemingly contradictory intersection of sorrow and joy. And we're pulling from an incredibly rich stack of sources today.
We really are.
We've got the ancient words of the morning's gospel, the Chesterton Radio Morning Prayer, a brilliant new literary audio drama featuring the detective Gabriel Syme, and the crackling, nostalgic warmth of classic summer radio.
And we should probably start by just acknowledging that the physical world outside our windows seems completely aware of these philosophical themes we're about to unpack.
Oh, 100%.
Because the weather in Atchison today, it's not just some passive backdrop. It is actively mirroring the exact tension we are talking about.
I am so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because stepping outside the studio this morning, you do not feel a gentle, idyllic spring day.
Yeah, not at all.
You feel a climate that is balancing on a razor's edge. We are at that specific inflection point where late spring just aggressively gives way to the furnace of summer.
Oh yeah, it's going to get hot.
The forecast shows the skies starting out mostly sunny, but the temperature is going to skyrocket. We're looking at sweltering heat, pushing near 90 degrees by mid-afternoon.
It is the kind of heat that really demands your attention, and crucially, the atmospheric pressure is highly dynamic today.
Very dynamic.
The meteorologists are tracking very active south winds that will persist throughout the daylight hours. So if you walk across the campus quad later today, you're going to feel that wind physically pushing against you.
Just violently tossing those bright green leaves of the oak trees across the bluffs.
Exactly. There's a real restlessness to it. And while the daylight hours are expected to remain drier, all of that rising heat and accumulating humidity from the river valley, it's doing something.
It's building.
Right. It is drawing moisture up and painting these massive, dramatic, towering, cumulus clouds. And that atmospheric tension brings a slight but very significant chance of scattered evening showers.
Or even severe thunderstorms moving into the region late tonight.
Anyone who has lived in the Midwest knows exactly the kind of evening we are describing.
Oh, yeah. You have this brilliant, hopeful sunrise that we are watching right now.
But as the afternoon wears on, the humidity thickens the air until it just feels heavy in your lungs.
You can feel it.
And then you reach that golden, windswept evening hour. The light takes on that strange, bruised, kind of yellowish hue.
The temperature suddenly drops 5 degrees, the wind shifts, and you can literally smell the ozone and the rain approaching miles before the first drop even falls. I have always found those specific evenings, the thundery, humid, late spring twilight to be incredibly dramatic.
Oh, absolutely.
But also undeniably melancholic. There is this physical heaviness. The sky feels like it is holding its breath and, sitting on your porch watching the horizon darken, that a violent release is just inevitable.
The storm has to break.
It has to. And that physical reality, the gathering storm, and the pressure that demands a release, it really serves as the perfect lens to examine the spiritual mystery at the heart of our first source today.
It's the perfect bridge, because the gospel reading assigned for this morning places us directly inside an emotional and spiritual storm.
Yes, it does.
The source material highlights the Douay-Rheims translation of the Gospel of John, specifically chapter 16, verses 20 through 23. And to understand the weight of this text, we really have to look at the immediate context.
Okay, to set the scene.
Right. Christ is not speaking to a massive crowd on a sunny hillside. He is in the upper room with his closest disciples. It is the Last Supper. The tension in that room is suffocating.
Because he is preparing them for his imminent arrest.
His arrest, his torture, his crucifixion, he is warning them about the ultimate storm.
And right in the middle of this terrifying preparation, he makes a promise that, honestly, on its face, sounds completely illogical.
It sounds impossible.
Right. I'll read the focal point of the text. He says, "Your sorrow shall be turned into joy." Now, I want to look very closely at the phrasing there, especially in the historic Douay-Rheims translation.
Which has such a deliberate, majestic cadence to it.
It really does. He does not say, "Your sorrow will eventually fade away and be replaced by joy."
Oh.
He doesn't say, "You will be distracted from your sorrow by a new joyful event."
Oh.
He claims that the sorrow itself is the raw material that will be transmuted or turned into joy.
And that is the defining mechanism of Christian theology. It requires a total paradigm shift from how we normally think.
How so?
Well, we have to clearly distinguish between the modern secular concept of optimism and the theological reality of resurrection, because they are frequently confused.
Oh.
And that confusion causes immense psychological damage. Optimism, fundamentally, is a coping mechanism.
Right.
It is the deliberate choice to look only at the bright side, to avert your eyes from the tragedy, to put a bandage over a gaping wound and just insist that everything is fine.
It's the desperate attempt to maintain a life without Good Friday.
Exactly.
Let me play devil's advocate here, though, because to a skeptical listener, the idea of resurrection might just sound like optimism with a religious coat of paint.
I can see how people would think that.
Right. Isn't telling someone your sorrow will be turned into joy just another way of saying, cheer up, things will get better in the end? How is this not just a psychological defense mechanism to keep people from falling into total despair when terrible things happen?
Is it really fundamentally different?
Yeah, is it?
It is fundamentally different in its relationship to reality. Optimism demands that you ignore the darkness.
Okay.
Resurrection demands that you walk directly into it. Optimism says, the tomb isn't that bad, let's decorate the outside of it. Right. But resurrection acknowledges the absolute crushing finality and horror of the tomb, but insists that the tomb has a door on the far side.
So Christ does not offer a detour around suffering.
No, he offers a passageway through the very center of it. As the reflection in the source text points out, Easter joy is a fact that still has wounds in its hands.
Wounds in his hands. That is powerful.
Christianity does not erase the trauma of the crucifixion. It glorifies the scars.
That distinction, that the scars remain but are fundamentally altered in their meaning, is so vital. And we do not have to speak about this in abstract, ancient terms.
No, not at all.
We can look right out the window at the Benedictine College community today. The campus FYI calendar provided in our sources outlines a stark, real-world collision of these exact themes.
It's happening right now.
Right alongside the celebratory senior brunch we mentioned earlier, the calendar notes the recent passing of a senior, Alex Lynch.
Yeah.
His funeral mass was held just yesterday in Indianola, Iowa.
Think about the psychological whiplash of that reality for the student body.
I can't even imagine.
You have young men and women picking up their graduation gowns, finalizing their celebratory dinner plans with their families, while simultaneously unpacking their black suits and dresses from a funeral.
It is a devastating juxtaposition.
It really is. And if optimism is your only tool, that situation breaks you. Optimism cannot handle the death of a young student.
No, it has absolutely nothing to say to a grieving mother.
Nothing.
Furthermore, the calendar highlights a recent academic panel hosted at Cana House. It's the Cultural Salon Melograno discussion titled Human Suffering in War.
Another heavy topic.
Very. The source notes that Dr. Tori Bauckham and Dr. Edward Mulholland led a discussion on the concept of co-suffering with our global neighbors.
Specifically drawing on their experiences volunteering with and accompanying Ukrainian refugees.
Right, so this community in Atchison is actively grappling with grief on every possible level.
From the intimately local to the globally catastrophic.
Exactly. The deeply intimate grief of an empty chair at graduation and the massive geopolitical grief of war and displacement overseas.
And this brings us back to your earlier question about why Christianity doesn't just offer an anesthetic.
Right. Why not just numb the pain?
Well, modern culture treats suffering as an absolute evil that must be avoided at all costs, because modern culture operates under the assumption that this biological life is the entirety of existence.
If this life is all there is, then any pain is a permanent theft of your limited happiness.
Exactly. It is a tragedy without a resolution. But the resurrection alters the physics of the universe.
Spiritual physics.
Right. If Christ defeated death, then suffering is no longer a dead end, it is a crucible.
A crucible.
Christianity does not masochistically claim that pain is inherently good. I mean, disease and death are still enemies.
Of course.
But it claims that in the hands of the divine, even the most senseless tragedy can be rendered fruitful. It transforms the wall into a doorway.
A doorway. That is a brilliant image to transition to our next source, because it is the exact language used in today's Chesterton Radio Morning Prayer.
It ties together perfectly.
It really does. And we really want to explore how humans actually navigate this practically. Like, how do you pray when you're standing in the middle of the storm?
It's a very real question.
If you look at the liturgy provided for today, the Friday of the 6th week of Easter, it includes songs 94, 50, and 147. Along with the Benedictus.
And the structure of this morning's prayer is basically a masterclass in the complexity of the human heart.
It doesn't demand a shallow plastic smile?
No, not at all. Take Psalm 50, for example, which is historically known as the Miserere.
Right.
This is traditionally understood as King David's agonizing cry of repentance after his horrific failures with Bathsheba and Uriah.
It's raw.
Very raw. The text reads, Have mercy on me, O God, according to thy great mercy. Wash me yet more from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my iniquity, and my sin is always before me.
It is a prayer ripped from the absolute depths of human brokenness, guilt, and sorrow.
Exactly. Yet within the exact same liturgical sequence, the person praying is asked to recite Psalm 94.
Right, which says, Come, let us praise the Lord with joy. Let us joyfully sing to God our Savior.
Now, to the outside observer, reciting an agonizing confession of sin alongside a jubilant song of praise seems completely schizophrenic.
It feels contradictory. How can the church ask a grieving person to do both before they've even finished their morning coffee?
Well, the source text explicitly addresses this, labeling it the paradox of the day.
The paradox of the day.
The reflection notes, the Christian does not escape sorrow by denying it, but by discovering that sorrow itself has become a doorway.
There's that word again. Doorway.
Right. You can pray the Miserere and Psalm 94 in the same breath because the contrition is the vehicle that delivers you to the mercy.
Oh, I see.
And this is perfectly synthesized by the featured quote from G.K. Chesterton's masterpiece, Orthodoxy.
Oh, I love this quote. Chesterton writes, "Joy, which was the small publicity of the pagan, is the gigantic secret of the Christian."
The small publicity of the pagan, Chesterton's command of language is just unparalleled.
Let's dig into what he means by that, though, because it's profound.
It really is.
The pagan world, and we can map this directly onto our modern secular consumer culture, advertises joy constantly.
It is on every billboard.
In every television commercial. It mandates this superficial happiness. You must be young, you must be healthy, you must be wealthy, and you must be smiling.
But it is a small joy because it is incredibly fragile.
Exactly. The moment the biopsy results come back or the bank account empties or the storm hits, that joy shatters. It has no root system.
It has no depth. The pagan joy is public, but it is shallow. The Christian joy, however, is a gigantic secret.
Why is it a secret?
Because, to the outside world, a religion centered on a man being tortured to death on a Roman cross looks like a cult of misery.
It looks morbid.
Right.
Yeah.
The world looks at the Christian and assumes their life is defined by restriction and suffering. But the secret, the gigantic reality hidden inside the tomb, is that true, invincible joy is only found on the other side of the cross.
The morning prayer reflection notes that the world imagines peace as a quiet room without thunder.
But Christian realism admits the thunder is deafening.
And the nails are sharp.
Yes, yet the joy remains intact.
Christ himself provides the ultimate analogy for this in the Gospel of John, and it is referenced in the morning prayer. He compares this spiritual mechanism to a woman in labor.
Which is such a striking image.
It is. Now, as someone who has sat with friends and family members through the childbirth process, the truth of this analogy is staggering.
It's very visceral.
In the delivery room, the immense physical pain is not a contradiction of life.
No.
The pain is not a sign that the body is failing or that death is winning. The pain is the literal biological mechanism of new life arriving. Without the violent contractions, the child cannot be born.
That is the crucial pivot. The pain is functional.
Functional, yes.
And that applies to everyone listening right now. Whatever burdens you carried out of bed this morning, whether it is the grief of a lost loved one, intense financial anxiety, a chronic illness, or a broken relationship, the theological claim here is that your pain is not meaningless.
You do not have to pretend it doesn't hurt.
You are allowed to weep, just as Christ wept at the tomb of Lazarus. But the secret is that the pain is the labor of a new creation.
The suffering is doing something.
Exactly.
That is incredibly challenging, but deeply comforting. Now, G.K. Chesterton did not merely write theological essays to explain these paradoxes.
I know. He was a storyteller.
He wrote thrilling, deeply atmospheric fiction to prove how these concepts operate in human psychology.
Which is a brilliant way to explore them.
It really is. And this brings us to a fantastic literary deep dive into the new Chesterton Radio original audio drama, The Man Who Stole the Morning.
This audio production is a brilliant extension of Chesterton's own narrative style.
Listeners might recognize the protagonist, Gabriel Syme, as the poet-detective from Chesterton's famous novel, The Man Who Was Thursday.
Right. He is a man who investigates not just physical crimes, but philosophical ones.
A philosophical detective.
And this new story dramatizes the exact conflict between shallow optimism and redemptive suffering that we've just spent the morning discussing.
It really does. To set the scene for you, the audio drama is drenched in atmosphere.
The sound design is incredible.
We are transported from the misty morning of Atchison to a rain-soaked pre-dawn London. You hear the clatter of horse hooves on wet cobblestones, the hiss of gas lamps cutting through the thick fog rolling off the River Thames.
You can practically feel the dampness.
Syme is called to the stone steps of an ancient church, St. Jude's, and lying dead on the steps is a man named Adrian Vale.
The victim.
The story describes Vail as this incredibly wealthy religious publisher, a massive celebrity, who is known as the Apostle of Happiness.
Right. Veil represents the ultimate manifestation of the small publicity of the pagan we were just talking about.
The shallow joy.
Exactly. He preached a very comfortable, highly fashionable religion, essentially a cult of positive thinking.
Just think happy thoughts.
He told his thousands of followers that suffering was just a failure of mindset. If you are sad, well, you just aren't thinking correctly.
He built an empire by erasing the cross from Christianity and replacing it with a therapeutic smile.
But he is murdered.
He is. And the chilling clue left on his body by the killer is a small card bearing the exact phrase from our gospel reading today. Your sorrow shall become joy.
Such a great setup.
Alongside the gruff, pragmatic Inspector Bull and a wise old Benedictine priest named Father Anselm, Gabriel Syme dives into the investigation.
And they quickly discover that Adrian Vail had a ferocious intellectual nemesis.
Professor Lucien Moore.
Moore is the quintessential modern cynic.
He really is.
He is a brilliant academic, a philosopher of pure despair. He has built his career tearing apart religious doctrine, arguing that the universe is just a cold, cruel, meaningless void.
So, initially, it seems obvious, right? The philosopher of despair murdered the apostle of happiness because he hated his cheap optimism.
It seems like an open and shut case.
But this is a Chestertonian mystery, so the obvious answer is completely wrong.
Of course it is. The twist in this story is a psychological masterpiece.
Unpack that for us.
Through their interviews with Vail's widow and Father Anselm, Syme uncovers a hidden reality. Adrian Vail, the wealthy guru of happiness, had recently received a terminal medical diagnosis.
He was dying.
He was dying. He was finally forced to confront real, inescapable physical suffering that no amount of positive thinking could cure.
You can't just smile away at terminal illness.
Exactly. And in the dark of his own approaching death, speaking with Father Anselm, Vail's cheap optimism shattered.
But instead of falling into despair, he found the gigantic secret.
He did. He was preparing to give a massive public address, retracting his entire life's work and announcing that true Christianity is not an escape from pain, but the transformation of it.
Now, wait a minute. Let's really look at this, because the motive here is the crux of the whole drama.
It is.
If Professor Lucien Moore despised Vail's shallow, sunny optimism, and Vail was about to publicly abandon that optimism and embrace the reality of suffering, why would Moore murder him then?
It seems contradictory.
Wouldn't Moore be thrilled that his rival was admitting that life isn't just sunshine and rainbows?
And that is the brilliant, dark reality of nihilism. Moore did not kill Vail because Vail was an optimist.
Okay.
Moore killed him because Vail was becoming a true Christian.
Oh, wow.
You have to understand the fragility of Lucien Moore's ego. He had constructed his entire identity around the premise that suffering is meaningless.
Right.
And therefore, his own bitter, cynical despair was proof of his profound intellectual superiority.
He thought he was smarter than everyone else because he was sad.
Exactly. If Adrian Vail stood up and publicly proved that suffering has a redemptive purpose, that a dying man can still find true joy, then Moore's entire philosophy is destroyed.
Oh, I see. If suffering can become joy, then Moore's lifelong despair isn't a badge of genius. It's just a tragic, stubborn refusal to accept grace.
Precisely. If the cross is real, then Moore is not a tragic hero staring bravely into the void. He is just a proud man sitting in a dark room with his eyes squeezed shut, refusing to look at the dawn.
That is so profound.
Moore murdered Vail because he could not bear the theological possibility that suffering might actually mean something.
And that culminates in this incredibly cinematic final confrontation that the audio drama executes just perfectly.
The scene on the bridge.
Yes, it takes place at dawn on Westminster Bridge. The Thames is churning below them like liquid iron in the early light.
You can picture it perfectly.
Inspector Bull moves in to arrest Moore, and Moore, finally broken by the truth he tried so hard to suppress, confesses to Syme.
He says, if suffering can become joy, then despair is not profound. It is merely pride.
It is merely pride. And right at that exact moment, the sun finally breaks over the London skyline, flooding the wet cobblestones and the river with this blinding golden light.
What a moment.
Gabriel Syme leans against the stone parapet, watches the dawn, and reflects on that impossible ancient promise. Your sorrow shall become joy.
It is such a rich piece of storytelling.
It really is. It bypasses the intellect and makes you feel the theological weight of hope.
And that visceral reaction is exactly why audio drama is such a unique and powerful medium for philosophical exploration.
Absolutely.
When you are listening to The Man Who Stole the Morning, you are not passively consuming visual data like you do with television.
You're not just staring at a screen.
You are an active participant. The medium requires you to co-create the world in your own imagination.
The sound design provides the rain, the footsteps, the ticking clock.
But your mind has to paint the faces, construct the bridge, and conjure the fog.
Which perfectly brings us to the final segment of our deep dive today. We are exploring a source that captures that specific magic of audio storytelling.
The summer radio dramas.
Yes, the curated YouTube collection of classic summer radio dramas provided in our materials is an absolute treasure trove.
It really is.
Just thinking about vintage radio evokes such a deep, resonant nostalgia. I want to ask you, the listener, to tap into your own memories for a second.
Paint the picture.
Imagine the feeling of a deeply humid, Midwestern summer evening, maybe decades ago. The sun has dipped below the horizon, but the heat is still radiating up from the asphalt.
You can feel that heat.
You can hear the rhythmic squeak and the sharp slam of a wooden screen door down the street. In the distance, the low rumble of a thunderstorm is building.
Just like the weather we're expecting tonight.
Exactly like tonight. And inside the living room, the only light is the warm amber glow of the dial on a large wooden radio set.
The whole family gathered around in the dark,
Listening to the crackle of a baseball game or the opening strings of a murder mystery.
It was an era of profound intimacy in storytelling.
It really was. Before television decentralized the American home, sending everyone into separate rooms to watch separate screens, the radio was a communal campfire.
Because you could only hear the voices coming out of the shadows, you had to lean in. It demanded your total attention.
The shadows felt darker, the suspense felt sharper, because your own imagination was filling in the terrifying blanks.
The Source collection features legendary programs like Suspense, where writers like John Dixon Carr use sound effects with surgical precision to build an atmosphere of dread that, honestly, CGI still struggles to replicate today.
Oh, without a doubt. But there's one specific dramatization in this summer radio collection that we absolutely have to examine.
Yes.
Because it acts as the perfect, horrifying mirror image to everything we have discussed today about suffering, joy, and the human condition.
It really is the dark reflection of today's theme.
It is the audio adaptation of Aldous Huxley's novel, After Many a Summer Dies the Swan,
Listeners might know Huxley from his famous dystopian novel, Brave New World.
where he critiqued a society that medicated away all suffering at the cost of human freedom.
Right, and this story hits similar themes, but with a biting satirical edge set in Southern California.
The narrative centers on a character named Joe Stoit. Stoit is an unfathomably wealthy oil tycoon who lives in this grotesque, artificially constructed medieval castle perched on a bluff in Los Angeles.
He's the secular extreme of the fear of suffering.
Yes, he has conquered the financial world, he has purchased every luxury imaginable, but he is completely, pathetically paralyzed by the terror of his own mortality.
Right, he is surrounded by unimaginable wealth and his young companion Virginia, but he is haunted by the grave.
He cannot buy his way out of death.
So he employs a highly cynical, brilliant physician named Dr. Sigmund Obispo.
Dr. Obispo.
Obispo is actively researching biological longevity. He is conducting these bizarre experiments on animals, specifically studying the digestive tracts of 200-year-old carp.
Desperately trying to synthesize a chemical fountain of youth.
Exactly. This is the ultimate, literal attempt to engineer an escape from the human condition.
While Adrian Vale tried to escape suffering through shallow psychological optimism, Joe Stoit is trying to escape death through pure biological mechanics.
He refuses the concept of resurrection passing through death, and instead demands indefinite biological continuation.
And the plot takes this incredible macabre turn.
It gets so dark.
A visiting English scholar named Mr. Portage is in Stoit's castle, translating a collection of 18th century papers belonging to the 5th Earl of Gonister.
Right.
Portage uncovers a diary entry from 1797 where the Earl details his own bizarre experiments, eating raw, minced carp guts to prevent senility.
The sound of that alone is unsettling.
The terrifying implication hidden in the diary is that the Earl's experiment might have actually worked.
That he might still be alive.
Hidden away in the subterranean dungeons of his ancestral home in England over a century later.
And Stoit, who is driven absolutely mad by the possibility of cheating death, immediately packs up Dr. Obispo and Virginia and travels across the ocean to England.
They break into the dark, foul-smelling, labyrinthine cellars of Gonester House.
And what they discover in the dark is the absolute antithesis of the gospel promise.
It really is.
It is the grotesque consequence of achieving biological immortality without spiritual redemption.
Because Christianity promises eternal life through the transformation of the soul, a process that requires yielding to death and being glorified by God.
Right. Stoit wants the eternal life without the God, without the yielding, and without the transformation.
He just wants his flesh to stop rotting.
And when they finally sweep their flashlights across the filth of the cellar, they find the fifth Earl.
He is 201 years old.
He has successfully evaded death, but he has not become a god.
No.
He has not achieved some enlightened, ascended state of being. By artificially forcing his biological life to continue endlessly without the natural, intended cycle of death and spiritual renewal, he has horribly devolved.
The transcript paints such a visceral picture.
The Earl has regressed into a fetal ape.
He is a hairy, grunting, mindless beast shuffling through the excrement of his cellar.
And the only proof of his former humanity is the rotting ribbon of the Order of the Garter still strapped across his chest.
The horror of that image is just staggering.
It forces us to ask, what happens when you actually succeed in permanently avoiding the natural trials of the human condition?
Right. By trying to eradicate suffering and death through pure scientific force and blind biological optimism, you do not elevate your humanity.
You destroy.
You become a beast locked in a basement.
And the most chilling part of the audio drama is the final exchange.
Oh, this part is haunting.
Dr. Obispo looks at this horrifying ape and cynically remarks to Stoit that, well, once you get over the initial shock, it really isn't a bad life.
He points out that the ape looks like he's having a pretty good time in his own way.
And Stoit's reaction is the ultimate tragedy of the modern mind.
In his absolute consuming terror of the grave, Stoit actually agrees with the doctor.
He looks at this mindless, grunting animal and decides that he is willing to devolve into an ape.
Willing to sacrifice every ounce of his humanity, intellect, and soul just to keep his lungs breathing.
It is a devastating critique of a society that values mere biological continuation over any kind of spiritual meaning or redemptive purpose.
When you step back and look at the tapestry of all these sources, it is genuinely breathtaking how they speak to each other across thousands of years and completely different genres.
It really is incredible.
You have the ancient divine words of Christ in the 1st century, promising that sorrow is the raw material of joy.
You have an 18th century Earl in a 20th century Huxley satire devolving because he refused to accept mortality.
You have a 1920s Chestertonian detective uncovering the prideful desperation of nihilism.
And you have our modern college students in Kansas, right outside our window, navigating the complex reality of graduating while mourning a friend.
The human condition remains entirely unchanged.
The fundamental choice laid before us this morning is the exact same choice it has always been.
When the storm hits, do we frantically try to numb ourselves, build higher walls, and ultimately devolve in the dark like Joe Stoit?
Or do we have the courage to walk directly through the doorway of our sorrow, trusting that it leads to the gigantic secret of Christian joy?
As the evenings begin to stretch out this summer, and as those late spring thunderstorms roll across the plains, I highly encourage you to spend some time on your porch.
Listen to the rain.
And track down some of these thought-provoking classic radio dramas. Let the voices in the dark spark your imagination and force you to wrestle with these massive questions.
They are a brilliant way to engage with philosophy while being thoroughly captivated by a good story.
And as the sun continues its climb outside our studio window, burning off the last of that silver mist, it is a very tangible, physical reminder that the night, no matter how long or terrifying, always eventually ends.
It really does.
Looking out over the Missouri River Valley right now, the transformation is just complete.
The mist has vanished.
The sun is fully risen, casting a brilliant, sharp, golden light across the water and the bluffs.
The bells of the Abbey have quieted, but the campus below us is entirely alive.
You can see groups of students walking the paths, faculty heading into the academic buildings with their briefcases.
The workday has officially begun.
And even carrying the heavy sorrow of a lost classmate, the stress of final exams, and the bittersweet tears of saying goodbye, the air out there is filled with the strange, resilient hopefulness of ordinary, everyday life.
People are moving forward. They are stepping into the future.
We want to offer a very warm deeply reflective thank you to you, our listener, for choosing to share your early morning hours with us here on Chesterton Radio.
We know how precious this quiet time is before the rush and the noise of the day fully takes over.
We hope this deep dive into the complex intersection of sorrow and joy provides a bit of a lantern for your path today.
Illuminating whatever challenges, griefs, or celebrations you might be facing.
As you finish that coffee and head out the door into your Friday, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, a new angle on everything we've discussed today.
Something to carry with you.
We spend so much time fearing death and clinging to this life. But perhaps the reason we are so instinctively terrified of the concept of eternity isn't because an unending timeline sounds boring. Perhaps we secretly suspect that in our desperate attempts to avoid all suffering, we have not yet learned how to love deeply enough to actually fill an eternity.
Wow.
True love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability guarantees sorrow. So if you want an eternal joy, you cannot bypass the heartbreak that expands your capacity to hold it. Do not fear the storms that visit you today. Thank you for tuning in to Daybreak. Have a beautiful Friday, a joyous weekend, and we will see you next time.